What's going on, Mad Hatters, and welcome back to the Madhouse, and it is time for the Meta Report, and that is what we're looking at the 12th through the 13th, and looking at 13 different events ranging from 26 people all the way up to 63 people from around, well, EU, a little bit of everywhere. So a lot of good things to look at. I think the report ended up giving us something like 102 decks, and so we're going to look at what made top 8, how that converted to top 4, and how that converted to first place. And then we're going to finish by looking at some lists that did really well and got first, but then we're going to look at some off-meta ones that really just came in to surprise people and still made top 8, top 4, or first place. And we got about 10 different lists to look at. So let's dive into it. But before we do, I've got to know, all right? Let me know in the comments down below, what nickname does Mother Gothel give Rapunzel? All right, with that being said, let me get myself out of the way here so I don't ruin the fun and move on. And this is the first thing we got. I'm just going to kind of make myself disappear for a second. This is the first thing we've got, ladies and gentlemen. We've got the breakdown. This is the conversion rate. This is all of the decks or almost all of the decks, and this, I ordered it from those that made top 8, so the most represented in top 8. And of what we see here is we see green purple discard taking the cake in top 8s. That's 13 green purple discards. And I'll be honest, I did not predict this. I did not think the green purple discard would really be as popular. It's a good deck, and I'm definitely not saying it's not. I just didn't think it was going to be 13 decks popular. It was a huge representation, and we're going to dive into that here in a couple slides, actually. Next up, though, we go to Steel Song. Songs here is if it has a whole new world in it. Okay, it could have Robin, it could have Rhino, it could not have either. If it had a whole new world and it was Amber Steel, it went in this tab. And we got 12 of them. DKP, that red-blue 12 there. Blurple, 11. And what a standout, because Blurple went from 11 in top 8 to the highest almost the highest conversion rate for top 4 with 8. And then 2 of them getting first place. And this is a really big jump. Blurple, a deck that a lot of people enjoy. It has a lot of play time, but when we did the last meta report, this was about 2 weeks ago, Blurple did not have a good representation going into top 4, and I don't believe it had any that made first place. So to go and have so many do so well into top 4, whether it's people figuring it out and how to do better with it, whether it's maybe Steel Song going down in some of these places that it was played, or it could just be that people are, they found a list that they really enjoy. They're not they're not making things like Into the Unknown try to work. But really big shift right there with Blurple. And next up, though, we got Rhino with 8, red, purple, evasive, and this was our biggest change of the report as far as decks doing worse. Red, purple, evasive, they had the highest first place conversion rate 2 weeks ago, and this time not able to convert at all with 0%. So it, 7 and then 42% going into top 4. So that evasive combo being able to come in and do well, and it's actually, you're going to see that it does really well against a specific deck, but just not able to seal the deal, and we'll kind of look into that here in a minute. But we see a lot of different things: red, blue items, green, purple discard, not doing super great going into top 4. But then we see the purple steel. Purple steel tempo is if it's purple steel and it has Zeus, excluding this Jafar Wheel that also had Zeus, but I gave it its own because, well, it's Jafar Wheel and it deserves its own. But purple steel here, the Zeus direction doing really well. When you see so many red blue DKP versions, that rabbit, that Zeus, it's just going to put in a lot of work being able to clear those, helping clear the way so you can get there. So 75% conversion rate to top 4 and a 50% conversion rate to top 2 is really, really good. Of course, we see a purple steel aggro. We see green yellow coming in here. That's Churna Dogs and discard. This aggro, this amber steel aggro, means it has no Rhino, and it's just a pure aggro form. It's not Diggy Diggy Hole. It is just, this is an amber steel aggro deck that does not have Rhino, whereas this one, this amber steel Rhino, is amber steel aggro that has Rhino. And that's really the only difference there. And then, of course, this red blue Maximus. We'll look at his list in a little bit. A young man that just did really well at a 1K event with a very, very off meta deck. So here's your breakdown. We'll go ahead. We'll move on to the next slide. And this is kind of the different archetype breakdown if you wanted some prettier colors, something a little bit easier on the eyes. This is just a list that had multiple different same color pairing, right? So we got green, purple, emerald, amethyst, amber, steel, and I just kind of broke it down. Maybe I should have done different colors. Let me know if I should have done different colors in the graphs. But we see in here this amber steel, it had a massive, massive amount of people playing amber steel. We had 12, 20, 25 amber steel lists making top 8. Red, blue, we had 20. Green purple had 18 making top 8. So you just kind of see the breakdown, and it's just a little bit easier to look at. So let me know if you like these still. But yeah, just impressive. Amber Steel Songs, that whole new world package, still the king, right? I mean, that's one thing to note that's really impressive was we see this many DKP burn. And then we still see so many Amber Steel Songs. A Whole New World is still a phenomenal card. Drawing 7, pretty great in my book. So the next thing we have here is this is from Inkdex, okay? And what this is Inkdex compiles all the lists that have been played, and then you can look and kind of separate it. So this is all the lists that were played in an event over the last 7 days. And I think it was something like 1,200 different games that were reported, where if it's 1,200 games that were reported on Inkdex, I'm not sure, but I think this is, of course, all of the games that were played. And when we look at it, the number one deck that was played is Blurple. Like I said, Blurple is, people love the color, that amethyst sapphire. People are really enjoying that color. The ability to ramp is really fun, but it doesn't feel as bad as having to rely on finding B preps and things like that. So you play the skillful purple cards, and the deck is just fun, and it does really well into discard. So people like that. They like the ramping and then just doing something on all your turns. So the deck just doing, a lot of games. People enjoy it. So when we look at how it breaks down here, it didn't do so hot against Red Blue Burn, but that is going to be kind of a tougher match for a lot of people. I think it's something that is getting easier with deck choices, but it is a tougher match being able to figure out how to do that. That's, those games, that's where that Ana is going to come in really well. That Monstro is going to put in a lot of work for you. And then there's some other cards that you could throw in to make that better. Steel Song, you just expect that to be lower. That Whole New World just really, really tears Blurple up. And then also not great against red-blue items, but again, something that you expect to see there when Blurple can't really interact with items super well outside of Cusco or oh gosh, the action that puts an item in their inkwell. Like it's hard, right? And you don't really want to run those just for one deck that might not show up a lot, but doing reasonably well against a lot of other things. It can fight very well back against the Amber Steel decks. You just gotta, if you get that genie down and they don't see the strength, or you like things like that, then you can put in a lot of work into those decks. Next up, we see Red Blue Burn. That is going to be a gimmick. When you see DKP win Worlds, and what he's most well known for is his DKP, that red blue, you're going to see a lot of people jump on that, and a lot of people trying to make it work. And also, I think it's the best deck in the format. I just think it's a deck that you can pick up and still do reasonably well with when you can dig for the removal options that you need, and it's so difficult to deal with manners and sharks. It's just a good deck. I think anyone could pick it up and do reasonably well with it. Now, one thing to note is it doesn't do super great against the green purples over here. Had a pretty good win rate against everything, falling against Steel Song, but if you look at it, green purple bounce 0%, 33%, green steel 0%, green yellow 25%. So any of those discard decks or just not doing super great, but overall the deck doing well. And then Steel Song, if we look at that one, and we'll move on after this. You look at 0% against red blue items, something you expect. A lot of the times your win con in that match is just decking them out. Green purple discard though, 27%. And this one I do find interesting. A lot of the time that doesn't feel like a super bad matchup, especially with cards like Rhino, where they just have a harder time dealing with that card if you can get it down. But yeah, and then losing against items, Oswald items. So that's an interesting one, but there are only 3 matches. It's kind of hard to really judge that. But yeah, so if you guys have never seen this, check it out on Inkdex. It's pretty cool. I'll put the link in the description down below. It's not 100% something you can rely on, but it is pretty cool to kind of see how things are going. Maybe you can sit down, man, if a lot of people playing Blurple are losing to Steel Song, maybe I need to have my friend play some Steel Song and we can get some practice in, and that might be worth your time. So yeah, really good. I think the last thing I wanted to point out was this one right here. 59% win rate with Oswald items overall. I will say, if you're playing Oswald items at an event, you're generally one of the few people that run a lot of it. So keep that in mind. Just because you see 59% win rate doesn't mean it's something I recommend you jump on, because the people playing Oswald items have played a lot of Oswald items, all right? So moving on, the next thing we have, this is just kind of how I build the graphs and what I do when I go through and collect everything. So I go to Inkdex, I check out every single list, or I check out every single event that was reported over so many players, and then I just kind of go through here and put it on here. So if you're interested, I guess I cut that off, but if you're interested in how that looks, you can kind of get your own opinion, and maybe you see your event, or maybe you see a location that you enjoy, and you can get an idea of how the meta is doing. One thing that I thought was interesting is EG collectibles. 3 green purple discard over there. We got red blue 3 over there at ABX. Right here, red blue items 4 in one location. These are all top 8s. So everything on here is a top 8. So yeah, if you like that, let me know, and I'll keep including it as well. So let's talk lists. All right, the first list I wanted to talk about is a pretty nifty one. This was over at Snake Eyes Comics. Justin Hames taking 4th place with his Ruby Steel. And I thought this was really cool. I've seen a lot of Justin posting on the Disney Lorcana Facebook page lately and posting Ruby Steel, and he's been playing a ton of it. I think on Dreamborn he had something like 100 games recorded with the list so far, and this is what he ran at Set Champs and took 4th place at I believe it was a high 20s low 30s event. So yeah, if you're interested in Ruby Steel, I would definitely check out Justin. Look for his posts on the Facebook page, the Disney Lorcana Facebook page, and you can kind of get an idea of what's been working for him over 100 games and what he's been enjoying. When we look at it, the list is just, it's controlling the early game, right? We got awesome cards like Captain Hook. We've got the Doc Diggy Diggy Hole package. So we've got Happy, Doc, and Diggy Diggy Hole. So a really great win con there. A really great way to control the board as well. Happy and Mine being able to answer Genie, which is really helpful because you don't have a good way to answer Genie. The only evasive you have is your own Genie, but even then, he can't take out Genie by himself. So that's weird to say. So you'd have to move him to a Diggy Diggy Hole or use a Jafar on Genie. And so that could be helpful. Lumiere also would help you clear that. But I like the list. I think Ruby Steel is a really cool deck. I think it does have a harder time in cards like Zeus, where it can just control a lot of the deck. But overall, I think the list is really fun. I would encourage you to give it a try. And just see how you do. I do know that when I saw Justin post on Facebook, his local meta, I think he said 18 of the decks there were actually on Steel Song, or at least Steel. So a really crazy day. I think all of his matches, though, were against a Steel deck of some kind. So just a cool deck, lots of draw. That was one of the things that have been hurting Amber Steel for the longest time, was a lack of draw. So now we have the 4 Docs and the Desperate Plan to help with that. good questers with the Smee, Jafar, Grandmother Fa, and then Pete being able to just shut your opponent down. It's a great way to just win games. If you get up to a lot of lore and you can just go Pete Lawrence, quest for 3. If there's ever a world where you can, drop a Pete Gantu in one turn, like that's pretty good as well. So really good job, Justin. And next up, we've got the Jackson Warren Memorial 1K. This was at the Impact Gaming Center, and this young man took first place. And I did not catch his name. His name was not on Inkdex, but really cool list. And it's just different. It's red-blue, as you can tell, but it's going and winning in a completely different way, and I respect it and I love it. We get tons of early lore from Flynn Rider, right? That Flynn coming down with just Mulan, of course only 2 health, but if you get the bell down on turn 1, that Scepter and Popsicle makes it a little bit easier to get that bell down, and then turn 2 you go Flynn, Cogsworth coming down on 3, but more importantly, the Prince John coming down on turn 3 is really great because you can go Prince John into maybe a Scrooge McDuck or a Goofy to try and get some lore that way. But what's really nifty is your opponent's going to be playing characters, right? So that Prince John's taking damage. So by turn 5, you're playing Baymax. Maybe even turn 4 because of Sail. So if you hit that ramp, but then you're playing Baymax to remove some lore and remove some damage from Prince John and gain lore, which is really, really neat there. I really like that ability that works so well together. So you go Tinkerbell or Flynn, you gain some lore from Prince John, you gain some more lore from Prince John with Baymax, and then meanwhile you have the one Goofy to answer some evasive. Maybe you want to answer a Diablo, maybe you want to answer Genie, whatever it is. And then you can close things out with Maximus. At the end of your turn, if you have any characters in play with 5 or more attack, gain 2 lore. If you have any characters in play with 10 or more attack, gain 5 instead. So this is really nifty because let's say you get a Maui down, rushes into something, and then the next turn you play Maximus. You can now use, if you have Scepter down, you can, let's say, use Maui, and you chosen character gains support this turn. So you give support to Maui, and then Maui can give support to Prince John, and Prince John can push Maui above 10, so then you gain 5 lore with the Maximus, which is pretty great. Like 5 lore like that, and now they have to answer your board somehow. Meanwhile, maybe you turned sideways already with Tinkerbell, so you gain 7 lore that turn with Tinkerbell. So just some pretty cool stuff that you can do with the deck, and a lot of really interesting turns and just cards that are hard to deal with as well. So I can understand why it wins and how it does so well. I'd be interested to hear how many Steel Song players he ran into when he was playing this list that day, because decks like this, really character heavy decks, they do suffer pretty hard into Steel Song, and so I would be curious. But the list, really cool, really good job, and a cool event. Any type of memorial, always a really big fan. So next up on our list here, we've got a Jafar Wheel, and I love seeing me some Wheel. I think Jafar Wheel has been a deck that I have loved since I started playing. It's never been one that I've played competitively because Zeus has always been a thing, and because of Zeus, I've never felt compelled enough to play Jafar. And with that being said, though, Richard, taking 4th place with it, took it, did really well, won himself his own Jafar. So I think running Jafar in the Reign of Jafar set champs is really neat. But it's not very different than what we've seen in the past. We have the Namaris thrown in here in the lamps. Those Namaris helping you dig for cards, helping you find the Jafar so you can sing Whole New World, or maybe find the Whole New World, or whatever other card you need. That lamp coming in here being a great tool on the draw, but also being a great package with Jafar himself. So the deck is just what Jafar Wheel does. You have some closing power with Giant Cobra, or just a 3-drop if you need it. So just a good deck, and it's nothing super different, but it did really well, and I could imagine why. The deck, it's not a bad deck. I don't think it ever has been. I just think that if you have a really heavy Steel Song meta, it might not be the deck, but it's still really fun. It's still really cool, and Richard killed it with it. 4th place. Really, really impressive. So good job, man. Next up, we've got Laura from Libertalia, taking 1st place with Steel Song. And this is the only Steel Song list in the video. Not that no more took 1st, because a lot did make top 8 and do really well. But one of the things that I wanted to highlight with this list is that a lot of the decks, I think both decks that took 1st place were running the Robin Hood and Rhino shift package. So I think that's something interesting to think about. The decks that are doing really well, consistently running A Whole New World right now, are running both shift packages. And I find it interesting, and it just opens up some opportunity. One of the gentlemen in my local discard, I believe it was Jeremy, the other day, showed off a hand that he had, and he's kind of like testing everyone. He's like, hey, how would you guys play on this hand? And it had the 3 1-drops in it, and I believe he already had the Robin Hood shift in his hand. But by having these 3 1-drops, he was able to essentially guarantee he would get a Robin Hood down. He made the opponent he guaranteed that he would get a shift down. So you play the Cindy on turn 1 against Purple Steel that has Fire the Cannons in Jeremy's case. So they pop the Cinderella, and then turn 2, you can play Rhino or Robin Hood. And then you can get that shift if you want, or you play both. You play Robin Hood and Rhino, and then turn 3 you can shift the Rhino if maybe you really need to for whatever reason, or you can shift the Robin Hood, and then just do whatever needs to be done at that point. Maybe you do value that resist 2 in that matchup versus the Robin Hood, but it makes your opponent wonder what am I more worried about? What is going to pose more of a threat to me? And Robin Hood is just a great card. A lot when green purple is as popular as it is. A lot of stuff that challenges. Red purple is coming back again, and a lot. So a lot of stuff that's challenging. And then Blurple, really popular. So a lot of stuff that's challenging. So that Robin Hood, a good chance to draw you a card. And then of course we have the Whole New World that's coming in here, helping against those matches. And then still running the Prince Naveen's, even if we're on the Robin Hood shift package. There's just a lot to be said about playing Ariel on turn 3, finding a Whole New World or a Zeus or whatever you need, and then Naveen on turn 4 to sing whatever song you found. So yeah, it's a good list. We opt to, when we run these 8 cards with the Robin Hood and, the Robin Hood shift package, we have to cut other things like the big shift package, Ariel Sonic Warrior, Lawrence's, but I don't know. The meta showed us this past weekend that A Whole New World is just performing better. A Whole New World with Robin Hood shift package in both packages is performing better. So something to consider. Something to consider. If we do, well, let's go back for a second. So Libertalia. So if we go to this one over here, when we look at it, one thing to note, 2 red blue, that's the Pirate's Life, so DKP version. So there was 2 in top 8, and then we have green purple and amber steel Rhino, so that aggro Rhino version. We have green yellow discard and green blue bounce. So that is something to note. So good job, Laura, and way to potentially help shape the meta. So next up, we've got Pedro from Libertalia as well, and this is that green-blue list that I just talked about, taking 4th place. In this list, I don't know, I think Squirtle runs something very similar to this, that Squirtle being a really popular green-blue player, and when you look at it, you might be surprised by some of the cards. We're on 2 Radigans. That Radigan is a 6/7 ward, questing for 4, costing 8, but also at the end of your turn, if you didn't put any cards in your Inkwell this turn, banish this character. So something to consider, but a 6/7 with ward is pretty difficult to get rid of. You're sending multiple cards into him if you want to get rid of him. Otherwise, he's just going to be questing for 4. And Squirtle, when he first started running Radigan, had mentioned that it's one way that he's just closed down games. He bounces these people's cards back to their hand. He gets Radigan down, continues to bounce while Radigan is just questing away. And when you're questing for 4 per turn, you're 16 in 4 turns, and I'm sure you've quested at some point during the time as well. So really good card. You get to that lore pretty quick, turn 5, turn 6. So it is interesting. I haven't personally tried the list yet, but meanwhile, we do play Fred. Fred is questing for 3, which is great, but more importantly, Fred is helping you find Clarabelle, which is really, really good, helping you find that Floodborn shift character. And then really important to note is the 2 Clarabelles. And I want to talk about this because you don't want to run 4, because a lot of the time you don't play Clarabelle on turn 1. Most decks can clear Clarabelle on turn 1 or can clear your baby Clarabelle before you're able to actually shift. But where Clarabelle comes in really, really well is you can now play Clarabelle on turn 6. So you play the baby Clarabelle on turn 6 or turn 5, depending on if you were able to ramp or however much ramp you need, and then shift in the same turn. So you empty your hand of 2 cards and you get to play your big Clarabelle 1 turn earlier, and that's really, really powerful right there. So I've also enjoyed 2 Clarabelles in my list. The Kita coming in, it's a great warded character that can sing. It lets you dig through your deck, which is really important for this deck because there are cards that you have to see if you want to win certain matchups. And then so that ward helping you sing songs, but also against discard decks helping you just stay above them because you don't have to use your hand to ink anymore. And then dig a little deeper and stopped chaos in its tracks. Just more different cards, right? Dig a little deeper, helping you dig for the cards you need, and it's in the name. And then stopped chaos in its tracks. Muses can only stop those two attack characters. Well, stopped chaos in its tracks helps you take out some of those 3-cost characters that might be kind of annoying that you can't really deal with. So another good option there as well. So I like it. I think it's really cool, and I wanted to say good job, Pedro. Next up on our list, we've got the ABX store. We got Richard taking first with Blurple Jafar. And if we go back to the list, I did put this in Blurple as I think about it. But looking at the list, Blurple Jafar, it's Blurple Jafar. Why do we run Jafar? Let's talk about that. Well, Jafar is a great just win con. It's a really great way to just close out games if you need to. You have a lot of draw power. You're looking to draw with Blurple. So between Genie, Finders Keepers, Friends, Sail, Popsicle, Lamp, that's a lot of draw. So Blurple, one thing that we've noticed is we can control the board, but sometimes it can be a little long before we get to that 20 lore. So Jafar gives us that opportunity to get there a little bit faster. We start controlling the board, and now we can set things up, and then we kind of quest out with Jafar thanks to his ability during your turn while this character is exerted. Whenever you draw a card, gain 1 lore. So now you're drawing cards. You're drawing 3 cards with Finders Keepers, and you get to gain 3 lore plus the 1 because you exerted with the Jafar. So that's really good. Or you exert Jafar to sing Finders or Friends on the other side and play Finders Keepers in the same turn, and you gain 5 lore. There's just a lot of options with the deck, and you still have the strong ramp package with Sail and Tipo. You have the control package with things like Madame Mim Fox, Elsa, and Belle, and then you have Jafar here, which is also, this character gets +1 for each card in your hand. So being a 0/5/2, he quests well, but he can also help just control your opponent's board. That ability to, if you play him on turn 4 and then you play Finders Keepers on turn 5, a 3/5 can challenge a lot of different things and live to tell about it. So you challenge something, and then maybe your Belle lives till the next turn, and then you can bounce that damage. So that Jafar, enabling Belle, which is great, enabling you to help control the board, and enabling the Jafar shift package to help you close games out. It's a good deck. Monstro helps against Red Blue Burn as well, taking out those locations, but also helps against aggro. So Richard, really good job playing something that I'm sure a lot of people weren't expecting to see. Then we have Monty from Southside Gaming, and look at this. This is aggro, if I've seen it right. Red, yellow aggro, and my first thought, Monty, did you dodge Steel Song all day? Like you had to have, right? You had to have dodged Steel Song all day is all I could think. But when we look at this list, you're just going fast. You've got all these 2 questers. You've got Moana, who is just, She's a card that quests for one. A lot of things early can't deal with her, so she's just passively questing for one over these turns, which is really good. But then a lot of people just kind of forget that she can challenge if you have a a captain down. So maybe you play Moana, you quest, your opponent plays something, some time goes by, eventually you play Piglet, and now you can challenge your opponent, which is really strong as well. That Moana coming in and just really messing things up for your opponent. LeFou coming in here. When you play this character, a ready chosen character, they can't quest for the rest of your turn. So a great way to keep your big questers safe. Cards like Simba, Lilo, these big questers that you don't want to get banished. Another thing is this Lilo Escape Artist. You can bring her back from the discard, and then if you top deck or have LeFou in hand, you negate her side effect where she comes in exerted. You then play LeFou and it readies him. So it's a cheap spin, right? It's a cheap spin that doesn't quest for 2. And then the last 2 things to notice is the Gloyd. Shout out to Bivens, right? We saw him win a game with Gloyd, where Gloyd comes out when you play this character. Each opponent loses 1 lore and you gain 1 lore. So really good reach there, kind of like a white rose, but better. Kind of being a 1-2, it's not quite as good as a 3-3, but your opponent loses a lore, which is pretty great. And then we've got the Minnie Mouse. That 0-8 bodyguard is a lot. That is a lot. You better have Brawl. You better have just great characters to challenge into it. That is a beastly bodyguard. And then knowing that you have to clear it in 1 turn because Rapunzel could come down and just mess up everything. And now they get to draw cards, and that Minnie Mouse gets their health back. So it's a really cool list. I think it's a lot of fun. It's super fast. So if you want to play something really fast, you want to be done with your games in 5-10 minutes, this is the deck for you. You're going fast. I saw Monty on stream. He won some games with Goofy and Gloyd. So just doing what they need to do to gain lore. Next up, we've got Wochuk running some purple steel tempo. We see that Zeus down here taking first place. I'm pretty sure this is right. I think he took first place on Saturday and Sunday with the same list. And it's just doing what Tempo Purple Steel does. I mentioned it earlier. This Rabbit and Zeus just really good into red-blue, which is a really popular deck right now, that red-blue DKP variant. But then we have our 1-drops that we've got 4, 8, 9, 10, 11 1-drops, so helping you get that early start. We've got Dump Truck, that Dumpy coming in here, able to answer Curse Merfolks, able to answer... It allows for a lot of different opportunities. Sometimes you just need the 1 damage. Maybe they traded into Chernobyls with a Fox. You play Dump Truck to take out the Fox. It's that 1 damage can be used a lot, or it's just a character you can play and gain 1 lore over a couple turns. So that's not bad either. But the rest of it, I think the Fire the Cannons is a top-notch play. I'm a huge fan of Fire the Cannons right now in Purple Steel. When we see so much Amber Steel, when we see so much green, so green-purple, there's going to be a lot of baby Diablos. There's going to be a lot of baby Rhinos, a lot of Cinderellas. So playing Fire the Cannons can just ultimately just mess up their early game when they're really depending on that shift package. So I think that Fire the Cannons is just a really smart decision. And then when you have all these songs, a great way to deal with red-blue. So it's just Purple Steel's, I think, is in a great place right now, especially Purple Steel tempo. So really good job, Wochuk. Real name Alex, for those of you that were curious. So next up, we've got Chaotic Good, the store Chaotic Good, and Jackson 5 taking this event. And I believe this is the last list, but we've got some blue-green items. And at the very start, we looked at blue-green items in the Inkdex matrix, and it had a good win rate, right? And just keep in mind, these people have been playing green-blue items for a while because the deck can feel awful sometimes. You can't really play Oswald into Amber Steel because they just let the Storm Rage on. Ursula, though, coming in, taking those songs, and then you can see, is it safe to play Oswald? But sometimes all you draw is items. Your opponent's playing all these characters. Meanwhile, all you're drawing is all of these items, and it's a lot. You've got 4, 8, 12, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 24, 28 items. Like that is a lot of your deck that you're going to be drawing, and it's important, right? Because it helps the Scrooge McDuck come down for free, but also find items. It helps the Oswald find items, and a lot of these are important. Ratigan's Marvelous Trap is super great with Tamatoa because you can Ratigan trap them essentially, where you play both of these over a couple turns. You banish them to make your opponent lose 2 or 4 lore, depending on if you banish 2 of them. Then you play Tamatoa to get them back, and then you can play them again, and your opponent loses 4 lore again. Meanwhile, you're just stalling until you can find something like Under the Sea, or maybe you got your Lucky Dime already, so you just need Tamatoa to come down. And signed contract is helping you draw cards every time your opponent plays a song. So it's just, the deck is good. It just requires a lot of practice and a lot of understanding about what your opponent's trying to do, but ultimately what you're trying to do. Maybe your opponent's getting close to winning. Maybe it's not about trying to control your opponent's board anymore. Maybe if you already have a bunch of items down at this point, it's just trying to dig to find Tamatoa, and then Tamatoa Dime in one turn. You play Tamatoa while you have Dime down, and you just get all the lore you need. So understanding where you're at and what the likelihoods of what cards you're going to draw is going to be really important, and just understanding how you're going to get to the point where you can Dime and Tamatoa and get that win under your belt. So with that being said, that was the last list. We'll kind of go back to the start. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. I kind of did a few less graphs this time, but so let me know if you liked less graphs. Okay, if you liked the kind of this look at it. But if you want to see something else in the next breakdown, let me know in the comments below as well. And if you know the answer to this question, let me know in the comments down below. With all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, remember, nothing else matters but staying happy and healthy, and I'll see you around.